Monday, May the 6th meeting of the Louisa County Board of Supervisors to order. Mr. Williams?
Mr. Chairman, I move we convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A and 2.2-371112. It's 3712, not 1112. The purpose of this closed session is under Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711A, subsections 1 and 3. 1, discussion and consideration of prospective candidates for employment of a public body, in particular for the position of county attorney. 3, discussion of consideration for the acquisition and disposal of real property for a public use where discussion open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position negotiating strategy of the public body.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. We go into closed session. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We're in closed session.
Session.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we go back into open session. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I will now poll members certify that to the best of your knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and is identified in the motion for which the closed meeting was convened were discussed and considered by the board. If any member believes that the board varied from the purposes stated for the closed meeting, please state so and the reason prior to casting a vote. Mr. McCotter?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Barlow?
Yes.
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Woodward?
Yes.
All right, we're back into open session. The meeting's been certified. So I'd like to welcome those of you that are here in the public meeting room and those that are watching online. This is the Monday, May 6, 2024 meeting of the Louisa County Board of Supervisors. We will start this meeting, as we do with every meeting, with the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to join us, please stand. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening and ask for your guidance and your wisdom in conducting the business of the people of Louisa County. We ask that you would watch over the county. We ask you to watch over our state. We ask you to watch over our country. Give our leaders, from our president to our governor, wisdom and to do the business of the people. We ask that you would protect those who protect us both at home and afar. We ask that you would continue to bless the United States of America, and I pray this all in Christ's name. Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item is the adoption of the agenda. I believe we have a change. Mr. Barlow?
Yeah, I'd like to move item number 1 on the East End Radio Tower out of consent down to business, new business and action items.
All right, are there any other changes to the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second that we approve the amended agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next up is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next up is the approval of the bills.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the bills. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We do have 2 recognitions tonight. The first recognition is a presentation proclaiming May 2024 as Older Americans Month.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Mr. Frith is not here to accept this resolution tonight, but it is proclaiming May, so I don't know if you would like me to go ahead and read this in public as a proclamation, or if you would like to delay this until the second meeting.
Why don't we delay it until the second meeting so someone can be here to...
Very well, sir.
I was looking forward to it. I kind of relate now. I was really excited about that.
Didn't really say who I'm talking about.
The second is a presentation proclaiming May 18th to the 24th, 2024 is National Safe Boating Week.
Jeff, I'll have you come up front. All right, I'll have you stand up in front of the dais and face the crowd. These are board members of the public. This is Jeff Palmer of the Lake Hanna Advisory Committee, and he will be accepting this resolution which is proclaiming May 18th to the 24th of 2024 as National Safe Boating Week. Whereas for over 100 million Americans, boating continues to be a popular recreational activity. From coast to coast and everywhere in between, people are taking to the water and enjoying time together boating, sailing, paddling, and fishing. And whereas on average 650 people die each year in boating-related accidents in the United States, 75% of these are fatalities caused by drowning. And whereas the vast majority of these accidents are caused by human error or poor judgment and not by the boat, equipment, or environmental factors. And whereas a significant number of boaters who lose their lives by drowning each year would be alive today if they worn their life jackets. And whereas during National Safe Boating Week, the U.S. Coast Guard and its federal, state, and local safe boating partners encourage all boaters to explore and enjoy America's beautiful waters responsibly. Safe boating begins with preparation. And whereas National Safe Boating Week is observed to bring attention to important life-saving tips for recreational boaters so that they can have a safer, more fun experience out on the water throughout the year. And whereas a clear statement of Virginia's boating laws may be found in the Department of Wildlife Resources, Freshwater Fishing and Boating in Virginia, noting new laws this year relating to no-wake zones near law enforcement and emergency activities, fire extinguisher rules, and the need to clean aquatic organisms and vegetation from trailers and equipment. Now therefore be it resolved that the Louisa County Board of Supervisors hereby supports the goals of the Safe Boating Campaign and proclaims May the 18th through the 24th, 2024 as National Safe Boating Week in Louisa County and the start of the year-round effort to promote safe boating. Be it further resolved, the board urges all those who boat to practice safe boating habits and to wear a life jacket at all times while boating on Lake Anna and all waters of the county. Supervisor McConnor, I'll ask you to present this.
Thank you, Administrator Goodwin. That was an amazing resolution that you composed and read. I don't know whether I can really add to that, but I know that very soon Lake Anna is going to become a very busy place, and we have a lot of people that are visiting as well as our residents. And what I would say is that any good boating outing is a safe boating outing. So if this encourages just a few people to wear the life vests and saves a couple of lives or one life, then we've done our due diligence here. So thank you for accepting this, and thank you for everyone at the county to proclaiming this safe, recognizing safe, National Safe Boating Week.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. All right, next is public comment period. This is a time for anyone can address the board on any subject that is not a public hearing. We do have 2 public hearings tonight. I have 1 card to address the board. That's Mr. John Taylor.
I'll pass to the next person now.
All right. I don't have any other cards. Is there anyone else that would wish to address the board this evening? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment period. We'll move on to an information and discussion items. First is a discussion considering the restoration of funding for PVCC in fiscal year 25. Do you want me to take that?
Sure, if you'd like to, sir.
Sure. As I'm sure it's widely known, the last meeting, the Board of Supervisors, pending a conversation with PVCC, had delayed the funding for the community college. We had requested a meeting with the community college. That meeting was unfortunately scheduled after the scheduled budget vote. Since that time, I've had several conversations and meetings with the president of the community college, who forwarded me the community college's protocols and policies concerning affirmative action, concerning discrimination, concerning anti-Semitism, and also how that they, the protocol that they go through to ensure that every student at the college, regardless of race, religion, background, gender, sexual orientation, is in a safe learning environment, and they're aware of the challenges that are going on both nationally and on the statewide level. And those answers satisfied my concerns. I passed that information along to the board earlier today. I cannot make a motion, but I would accept a motion of the pleasure of the board. Yes, sir.
I move that we reinstate the little less than $6,000 into the PVCC budget for the year.
Second.
Yeah.
Been properly moved and seconded that we restore the funding for PVCC for fiscal year 25.
Chairman.
Any discussion? Yes, sir.
I want to be clear, just so no one thinks that a couple of untimely phone calls and cussing and ranting at me makes a difference. That's not why I changed my mind. And I didn't change my mind. We wanted to hear from them. And so I know a bunch of us on the board got a really interesting phone call from somebody in the community. I don't know who it was. Maybe they weren't even in the community. It came up with the Texas number. But I just want to be clear that the best way to deal with these things is to discuss them, educate yourself. That's what we've done. I feel comfortable on what they've given us, and I'm prepared to vote for it. And I just wanted to say that because I received that phone call.
Mr.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if I may.
Oh, yes, sir.
An idea was raised by some in the community as well as in a local publication of a highly respected journal that in some way that the discussion of the matter at the last meeting was inappropriate because it was not appropriately on the agenda. I'd like to put that to rest and say that it was a budget item, and it was a meeting devoted to the budget. And so there were no infirmities to the process by which the question was originally considered, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Woodward?
I'd just like to add to what Mr. Williams said.
Use the microphone, too.
With the president of Piedmont sending the information she sent out, that has satisfied my concerns about the safety and any type of things maybe going on at Piedmont that shouldn't be.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next, we go to new business action items. The first is a resolution to appropriate the fiscal year 2025 operation and maintenance budget.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Chairman, hold on. I got a revised one here.
Ms. Colvin,
Okay.
we'll go with you first.
we talking about the same thing?
Yeah.
So this is a resolution to appropriate the fiscal year 25 operation and maintenance budget. I will add back in for Piedmont for the budget and appropriation. So the number on the resolution in front of you, I will update to $156,169,348.
All right, Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I
Williams.
want to be clear that MACA, organization that we do not control, has suspended their Head Start program here in the county and everywhere else. We have monies in the budget for that. I would like to move that we leave the monies in the budget, but we not appropriate that portion until MACA starts the Head Start program back up. They have suspended it. They relinquished their Head Start program grants with the intent of reapplying for a revised grant in the near future. We don't know what their schedule is going to be. The money's going to stay there. We're just not going to appropriate it because they have suspended the Head Start program. I don't want to get ugly phone calls asking how come we have suspended Head Start. We have not. They have. So I would like to make a motion that we appropriate everything except for the $38,000 for Head Start because it's not going on right now.
I'll make that change.
Second.
And it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is a resolution to appropriate the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement plan. Ms. Colvin.
Yes, Chairman and members of the board. This is to appropriate the funding. No changes from our last meeting with the adoption. The amount is $51,672,859. It's lowered because we moved the middle school upgrades into 24 so they can get started. So this is the new amount for 25.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Barnes.
briefly, I'm on board with this. What happens, okay, because my God is a good God. What happens is by some miraculous change, the General Assembly put in their budget the 1% for localities. Would that still affect this?
Potentially.
Potentially, I don't know the guidelines that'll come with that.
You'll still have to go to referendum.
Right.
Right now, it's going to be added to the 24 budget based on your adoption you had. The debt issuance will not occur to that until November.
Okay.
They do want to start doing.
Revenue.
Yeah, so we are going to have to spend county dollars to get started and reimburse ourselves, but if they don't, as long as they don't say no supplanting, we should be able to do it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I move we approve it.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded. We approve the resolution. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I would just add to what we were just talking about. I think the General Assembly goes back
13.
in session next week.
Yeah.
So we may have to come back and tweak both the capital improvement budget. We may have to operation and maintenance based on state funding. But,
Absolutely.
you know, unlike our friends in Richmond, we'll get it done on time and we'll let them kick it down the
I will
road. So,
absolutely pull everything together for us all to revisit at that point.
thank you.
We know you will.
Resolution to declaring the intent to reimburse the cost of certain expenditures related to the Louisa County Middle School expansion and CT Center project. Ms. Colvin?
So this is what I was just referring to. We've moved the project into '24. We will not do the debt issuance till fall with Virginia Public School Authority. So this is so they can get started on the project, and we'll reimburse from the debt once it's issued in the fall. And this has given us permission by the board that we can start spending the money and reimburse from that.
I already know, but I want you to say it. So what's the reasoning behind moving the money from one fiscal year to another fiscal year?
They'd like to go ahead and start while school is out, so that the construction's not going on while the kids are there. They want to get as much done as possible over the summer.
So my understanding is, and this is not really directed at you, that literally the day after school's out, they're going to start moving trailers.
Yes,
So
that is correct.
The mobile learning centers, sir.
Mobile learning centers. So again, this doesn't overall impact the cost of the project at all, but it's so that they can start as soon as school's out, and that happens to fall in this fiscal year. Did we have a motion?
Not yet. So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we
I
approve
think
the
you can beat 'em.
resolution. Do we have any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Next is a resolution to consider an unsolicited public-private educational facilities and Infrastructure Act of 2002, proposal for publication and conceptual phase construction or consideration for water and sewage infrastructure development serving the North Creek Tech Campus and Lake Anna Tech Campus.
Heck of a lot of sense.
Can you make that any longer, Mr. Wade?
Just follow the old one, Chairman. Good evening. So resolution before you tonight is to consider acceptance of the PPA, unsolicited PPA design build proposal. We received it last week, and again, this is for the infrastructure project that will serve both AWS campuses in Louisa County. Be remiss if I didn't note AWS is paying 100% of this project. So want that on the record. Upon acceptance tonight, if you accept it, the county has 10 days to advertise the proposal. When we advertise, it can be for no shorter than 45 days. During that 45-day period, it allows other design-build teams, competing proposers, to submit proposals for the same project, at which time we will evaluate those and curtail that number to a final selection. If the proposal is accepted tonight, the 45-day window will start May the 9th, Thursday, and it will end June 24th. That's actually 46 days, but the 45th day landed on a Sunday, so moved to Monday. Accepting this proposal does not contractually obligate the county to do anything. It's just saying we will advertise for 45 days in accord with our published PPA guidelines. And that concludes my remarks. Happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Barlow?
I would just like to congratulate Mr. Wade. He hit every button that I had written down here to make sure it got right.
Did you pre-send him the questions?
Number one,
I read his email out loud.
number one was to make sure that it was noticed that AWS is paying for this, is reimbursing us for it. And then the second thing was, as far as the unsolicited bid, which I now have a better understanding of those, that just gives us it is an offer that we accept, and we're not locked into it. With this, it still goes out for bid, which is, I tell you what, he did a fantastic job.
So would you like to make the motion to approve it?
Yeah,
I'll
I'd
second
approve
it.
that.
One more note. What we advertise is the public portion, so the PPA bids come in private, confidential section and a public section. The private is trade secrets, potential costs of the project, company, design, build, financials, things of that nature, which will be obviously not publicly advertised. So.
Been properly moved and seconded that we accept this unsolicited public-private partnership bid. Is there any other discussion?
Proposal.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Wade. Next is a resolution to approve the East End Radio Tower Land Lease Agreement. Mr. Kuhn?
Good afternoon, Chairman and members of the board. The only update we have was a request from the Holly Grove Volunteer Fire Station to make sure that we allowed their access to the gravelled road. So what you have before you, there is a section C that was added that allows the edge of the gravel, as well as a depiction of where the enclosed tower will be, which was the last addition. So it's one more attachment. Is anybody ready to answer any questions?
So moved.
Second.
Do you have any addition?
No, that item C was the only reason we pulled it out of consent agenda, was to take care of that.
Okay. Any other, it's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the East End Radio land lease agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Next up is committee reports. Do we have any committee reports?
Negative.
Next is board appointments.
Mr. Chairman, just really quick, Lake Anna Advisory Committee, we have 2 signed contracts for HAB mitigation efforts beginning on the lake, in the upper end of the lake this summer. That is using the funds that were earmarked by the state for LAC and Louisa County to administer. That
Okay.
concludes my report.
Any other? Yes, ma'am.
Could we step back to, can we step back to committee reports?
We
Because
are,
We do.
yeah, yeah. Mr. McCotter, step back for us.
Okay. Are you done?
Let him.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. McCotter and I just wanted to speak briefly, and you can add too. We had our first meeting for our litter work group this past week, and it was very successful. We had 7 residents who are sitting on the board, on the committee, this work group, and 2 board of supervisors, myself and Mr. McCotter. Some great ideas came out. We discussed how the code section is shaped, what we can, what we can't do. There was some discussion, a little bit of debate about it, but we are moving forward to our next one, which will be coming up. We haven't set a date yet. We're going to be doing some research on a few things, and it'll be coming up in June possibly. Is that correct? But it was a good, positive first step for our litter group, and some very passionate residents who are passionate about cleaning our county up, and it was refreshing to see. Do you have anything else to add to it?
I think that pretty much covers it. Looks like we'll be putting out possibly a survey to understand the residents' concerns and priorities, and then move from there.
Trash. VDOT didn't pick
All right, any other committee reports?
VDOT does a great job, I have to say, too.
Board appointments, Mr. McCotter.
Yeah, I have 2. One, I would like to make a motion or ask for the appointment of Mr. Elliot Golden to the Transportation Safety Committee for Cuckoo District.
Okay. That's the second one.
The second one is to remove Robin Wheeler from the Tourism Advisory Committee and appoint Robin Gwill.
Second.
Okay, any other committee appointments? Been properly moved and seconded for those 2 appointments. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is the county administrator's report. Mr. Goodwin?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Ms. Jones and Mr. McCotter took a lot of what I was going to talk about, and that's great. It was in committee reports, which is where it's supposed to be. So there are some dates which are included for upcoming events on page 61 of my report, and we're on an off week for monthly reports from the departments because of our schedules. So that concludes my prepared remarks, unless you have any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Goodwin? We'll now move on to public hearings. Thank you for the report. Resolution to approve the 6-year plan for secondary road system construction in Louisa County. Mr. Thornton. Before you get started, thank you for getting back to me today and looking into that issue. Appreciate it.
Yes.
All right.
Don't worry, it's on film. It's
sure?
it's forever. It's forever.
Captured. That's all right, Willie will get me tomorrow, I have no doubt. So the draft you have before you is the same as what was approved at the work session. So it shows $118,268 of the district grant unpaid going to New Anna Road, and the remaining balance of the $99,446 going to the countywide rural additions as approved for the hearing. So if there are any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Thornton? Thank you, Mr. Thornton. I'll now open public hearing. Is there anyone here that would wish to address the board on the 6-year plan for secondary road system construction? All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the
Move to
board.
approve it.
Second.
Been properly moved and second that we approve the resolution. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is a
Thanks, guys, for working with us.
Thank you very
as always.
much, thank you. Ordinance amending Chapter 86 Land Development Regulations, Article 4, Supplementary Regulations, Division 4, Lake Anna Shoreline Use and Design Standards, and Article 2, Zoning Ordinance and Maps, Division 5, Growth Area Overlay Standards, Section 86-124, Site Design and Architectural Guidelines. Good Lord, can you all make this any
That's a
longer
mouthful.
today?
Yes, they can.
I
and
guess
they have abbreviated them for you.
Yeah, Mr.
It's the
Coon.
abbreviated version.
Mr. Coon.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. So the edits that have been made is Thomas Jefferson Water Soil Conservation District has been pulled out, and that is because we now do those ENS plans in-house. So that's why we amended that. The commercial and residential community area has remained the same. And then just wanted to go over the process.
It's on 68. 68. Okay, so 68. I'm just telling you where to start.
Yeah,
No, go
we're
ahead.
just,
All right.
Catching up. We're behind. You soar way ahead of us really quickly. You caught up? Yes, stop talking.
Yeah, got
You're
it.
good. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. So then, what we're talking about changing is for the agricultural and residential properties that are building a boathouse or a dock on Dominion property. We won't have our staff go through the requirements that Dominion already has in place. If they have the approval from Dominion, we will take that as approval from Dominion to build there, and then we will have our staff would just look that the agreement is for the individual parcel. The roof height is correct, whether it's a pitched or flat roof, and then the construction drawings, excuse me, match the Dominion approval notification. And then it'll have building plan review, and once that's reviewed, it gets the permits, and we move forward with inspections. So it doesn't really change anything for the county, except we will not be doing the same work that Dominion is already doing to get the approval to build on Dominion property. There has been some conversations about taking the as-built requirements out, so there are a couple sections that we have that. So if the board would like to do that, we would just have to remove the as-built language from item B, which is safe navigation, items 3 and 5, and then under C, which is neighbor policies, it would be item A, 1, 2, and 3, all references it. And then the lighting references that are in shoreline would be moved to the growth area overlay standards. And as we indicated last meeting, we weren't able to change it in time for the agenda packet, but the change, the recommended to required, and the lighting references as well. I stand ready to answer any questions.
Where's, I've got it all except the, I've got the as-built. What section was the lighting requirement?
Lighting requirement is on the last page, page 77, and the last section of that before we added the
Recommended, I got it. A, B, and C, we moved from recommended to required, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is any-
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is basically just streamlining the process for the resident, for the county, for Dominion. We're just streamlining it. Is that what we're doing?
Correct. So if there's an agriculture property and or residential property that are building their own boathouse or dock, they have to go to Dominion to get a contract or an
Right.
agreement with Dominion to build. And right now what's happening is they get that agreement, then they have to come to the county, and we have our own staff that doubles and does the
Ah.
exact same
Yeah.
review that Dominion already does. So all we're saying is that if you have the agreement to build from Dominion, which is on their property, then we'll essentially take that as the okay from Dominion to do it. And we'll still do our review that's necessary, which were
Right.
those 3 items. And we won't spend more staff time that's necessary.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
so just to be clear in my mind, the as-built is going to be taken out altogether.
Not yet.
We'll wait for a
Not yet.
motion. Somebody will have to make a motion to take
Open
that out.
public hearing, talk about it first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you all were aware of the 6 locations it was, because there was some conversation about that.
Gotcha.
Mr. Barlow?
When reading through this thing, it was still sort of confusing as to me as to what has been taken out and what's left in. And I guess what my question was, in turning over the shoreline development to Dominion, are we giving up control over the water that every user of the lake has a right to use? And that what safeguards are in place with this new ordinance that we don't end up with another 15-acre floating townhouse development over the water?
You knew about it.
And maybe because this part that's being done now is just for agricultural and residential lots, maybe that takes it out. But, you know, the more regulations we can get rid of, the better. I like it. But by the same token, that lake is used by everybody. And I want to make sure that somebody can't come along that's coming off of a residential property and build a 15-acre floating bunch of condominiums out there on the lake and us have no purview over it. Is that clear in this ordinance that if something like that comes up, that it comes to this board, the planning commission, everybody else?
So if it is a commercial or common area for a development, yes, they would have to come through the county to get that approval. It would be for an individual.
This is for boathouses and docks.
Correct. So
To
if it's,
service a agricultural or residential lot.
yes,
Is that the only thing it covers? So a floating townhouse is neither a dock nor a boathouse, nor does it service a residential or agricultural lot. Is that accurate?
yes, that'd be my
Okay.
assertion.
Does it say that in here, though, is what I'm looking for?
It doesn't have to say it. It says it by the fact it's not in there. I mean, this covers agricultural and residential lots, and it covers boathouses and docks.
For those, but what I'm saying is, you have a
And then you have to
residentially
approve it.
zoned property, which we, R2s, all around that somebody can't come off of one of those and
The
build
floating
something.
townhouse was your.
Well, it is, but what I'm saying is, if that's all this is for, then why the devil can't we put something right in the front that this is what it's for? That's what I'm getting at. Make it clear that that's what we're addressing. If we had that, I wouldn't have had any questions.
I thought it said it.
I'm not sure
I didn't see it.
I'm not sure I follow what you're asking.
What I'm saying, he said this, Mr. Williams just said that this is just for residential lots and agricultural. I didn't see that in here.
Structures, including but not limited to fixed floating docks, piers, boardwalks, slips, accessory buildings, and other types of development on or attached to Dominion's property. So it doesn't, I mean,
Anything would be attached coming off of a residential lot would still be attached to Dominion's property
yeah.
because of Dominion's easement.
Well, it's gotta go across the Dominion to get out to it.
Right.
I just wanna make darn sure that this doesn't in any way allow some sort of a harebrained idea of developing.
Oh, there's all
15
kinds of harebrained ideas, sir.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
So do we need to put with no floating?
No, we put no harebrained ideas other than the ones listed
Well,
in
y'all
here.
can think it's silly if you
I'm
want.
not,
I don't
no,
give a-
it's
I don't
not
think it's
silly.
silly. I
I
just-
just think,
They're
I
acting like-
mean,
I know what you're talking about because there was a proposal about 15 years ago.
That's right.
It wasn't
To
just
do
a proposal,
exactly
it
what
was
you just
going through,
Yeah.
if we
So-
hadn't stopped it. Now, I'm
Mr.
trying to
Good-
make darn sure that that doesn't happen again.
Mr. Goodwin?
Mr. Kuhn, or Mr. Mullen, correct me if I'm wrong, is that not addressed on packet page 73? Section 5, let me go back up. 86,656, subsection
What page you on?
B, I'm on page 73.
656.
So at the top there, number 5, agricultural and residential district uses, then there's a bunch of strike through because that's where the regulation has been taken out. Commercial district and common area use in section 5A and resort development and planned unit development uses, those are untouched. Does that address your concern, Supervisor
Yes,
Barlow?
except for the majority of the common areas around that lake are off of residentially zoned properties, R1 and R2. They're not commercial properties.
But
we
you're
have
still
restriction.
keeping the restrictions that.
Yeah, it says
the restri-
residential and common area use, so we're not changing that part of the.
Well, if y'all are comfortable with it, that's fine.
I want to make sure we're addressing your concern. I mean, I think everyone at the dais, if I'm hearing your colleagues, they agree with you, and certainly staff has no reason to disagree with you, but the restrictions are still there. A structure shall not protrude more than a third of the distance. So all of that, the very fact that those requirements are still in that section means that the county still has a hand in reviewing those regulations, just as we do today.
That's fine. My question was, with this ordinance, are we assured that that is the case and somebody can't come off of a residentially zoned property?
I would say we are, because this ordinance is the current ordinance, but what we're striking has nothing to do impacting his concerns. We're leaving the parts of the ordinance that addressed that issue 15 years ago in place.
Now, we could come in with a belt and suspenders approach, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Mullen, we could come in with a belt and suspenders approach and more clearly state that if you want to do a commercial or a common area, you must come before the board and get a special use permit or something like that. But that would be putting more regulation than we have today.
Yeah.
And if that is what the board wants, that is certainly fine with us.
But this is the resolution, this is the ordinance that was passed when you were talking about that floating community, whatever they were calling it. And so these are the regulations that have been in place, and what's being stricken doesn't apply, isn't striking what prohibits it to begin with.
Okay, that's fine. If what's being stricken doesn't take that out, then I'm fine with it.
It does not.
Well, let me
It does not.
Because I think I understand your question now. So let's say that, let's forget townhouse. Let's say I want to build my house over onto the Dominion easement. Is that more what you're speaking of?
No, that's.
it's not.
No.
Or just a floating house?
A floating.
No, out over the water.
Well, okay, so if I want to build my house out over the Dominion and over to the water, so it overhangs the water, that's what you're speaking of? Does Dominion allow that?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I would
But
think
what I'm
that's a
saying
Dominion
is-
issue.
If Dominion
That's what I was
does all of a
thinking.
sudden decide that they would allow it.
I
then
think
don't
we'd have to fix that with zoning on our part if we wanted to do that,
Well,
would
it
we
would
not?
be too late if somebody had already applied for something that they allowed and we didn't. How do you back up and make it retroactive?
One item I will also address is that these are R1, R2 and ag properties, so they wouldn't be able to have increased density. So
We're not talking about increased density. Let's say I just want to build my house. Forget, because I think that's the simplest version, is that right? If you can stop my house from going over the water, that's the simplest version. The most convoluted is a townhouse or something different. But if you can stop my house from going over the water, then you can stop anything from going over the water. Is that accurate?
I would say, I mean, right now with our current ordinance, your house can't be built beyond the byline, within 5 feet of it.
Okay,
Which this doesn't
would
change that part of the
Would that
current
apply
ordinance.
to this as well? That's a good point. Would the zoning then apply that you can't be over that? I don't, I'm not trying to convolute
We're
it.
not we're not changing the
I
current
know, but what
ordinance.
I'm asking is, would the zoning then apply because you're building a residence and you have to build it within a setback and there's no defined setbacks on the actual lake?
What you're talking about is on the land, which that's not changing. It's over the water.
Right.
That I'm talking about. And what I'm just asking is in this ordinance with what we're doing, if we have things still in place that will stop anybody from doing a townhouse, for
Maybe the
example.
better way to ask that question is, have we pulled anything out that we currently have that would prohibit that? Is that a better way to ask the question?
I think that's what he's asking.
Is that what you're asking?
That's what I'm asking.
And the
yeah.
answer to that is no.
Okay, if the answer to that is no, then I'm fine with it.
Mr. Goodwin?
Since we're clearly talking about something that maybe hasn't been applied for on the lake, and would it be helpful if, even if the board adopts what's in front of you tonight, we could have a couple of representatives from Dominion at a future meeting, and they can answer these questions, because I think, these things are constantly changing, people's ideas of homes are constantly changing, and knowing Dominion's stance on that might be helpful for the board, if you would like.
Can't hurt.
And that may change too. I mean, we have no assurance of what Dominion may do in the future.
Because it's their pool.
Well, it's their pool, but it's just like Dominion is a landowner in Louisa County with a large pond. Any other landowner in Louisa County has to abide by the regulations of Louisa County. Now we're turning these regulations over the lake, over to the landowner. And that's fine with me, as long as we don't end up with somebody coming in with something we haven't expected out over the water. And Dominion says, oh yeah, go ahead.
Could we fix that by saying that nothing other than boathouses and docks shall be built over the water in Lake Anna without a conditional use permit? I mean, is that a simple way to fix it? I'm asking, I'm trying to find the simple way here.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, I think we can confine the discussion tonight to simply making the modifications we had made without damaging what's there beyond what you all are understanding it to be. I think these questions go beyond that, and I think they're good questions, and we should research them in the very near term to make sure that we do have answers. And if there are further controls that need to go into the code, we can propose them for the public's consideration.
So let me ask you a question, like the big boat tail thing at the 2-8 bridge. So if you were to, would your concern be that, hey, we put that on pilings and we make it condos sitting out there? I mean, is that?
That's exactly what was.
They tried to do that.
Before, it wasn't pilings, it was gonna be.
They were floating.
Even a restaurant was proposed. And at that time, it was sailing through.
And Dominion was in favor of it?
Yeah, they were letting it go.
At the time.
At that time. Now, I think they have regulations in place. I don't believe it. At the time, what Dominion said was that as long as it didn't impede the water flow and they had their water for cooling the lake, they didn't care. So,
So maybe a simple ordinance that says the waters of the lake shall be used for nothing more than docks and and boathouses.
Mr. Chairman, I think that the way this proposed amended ordinance reads is that the commercial structures, as well as the common area structures, will remain under Louisa jurisdiction. So should someone come to us, come to Dominion and the county with a plan to do something like that, which was called the Lake Anna Floating Island Complex, then we would have our say on that.
okay.
This does safeguard that particular case.
And I guess it gets down to what would be considered. In other words, if something like that came in, I'm looking towards our attorney now.
I'm listening.
If you had something like that come in, would it be considered a commercial? If it was,
That's a good question, because I'm not sure townhouses be considered commercial.
that's,
You could pervert that to make it residential.
well, that's exactly what I'm talking about. We're talking about residential uses from R1 and R2 zone properties. So if somebody went out there and had a residential use over the water, is there something in this ordinance that we're proposing now to turn over to Dominion that would preclude them from being able to do that?
To the extent that it existed before, it still exists in there today.
Okay.
But I will say that an argument could be made and the code could be strengthened to indicate that that would not be permitted.
Which is a separate issue from what we're addressing
I
tonight.
believe it is, yes.
And I think Mr. Goodwin had a good suggestion that let's ask Dominion to come here, ask these questions, get their explanation, and then because these are good concerns. I mean, they're valid concerns.
100%.
And if those concerns aren't addressed by Dominion, or addressed by current code, then we can look at if we need to change code.
Bingo.
But that's a separate issue than what we're proposing tonight. Do you have any objection to that?
No, as long as it is a separate issue, that's my question.
Well, I think it is because, as Mr. Mullins just said, whatever exists yesterday in code to address your concern is not changed by what we're looking at in this code.
And that right there was my only question in the beginning.
Yeah.
Was if this still addresses those type of things.
I don't think it ever did, though.
Well,
I think that's the difference. I don't think it ever addressed it.
we drafted
Use the microphone.
the, we drafted the shoreline ordinance in response to some of those very same things. So if what you just said, if our ordinance addresses that type of thing, and what we're doing now is not turning that over to Dominion for there, then I have no problem with it. That was my only question. Is
Well,
there anything in here?
it's not, but I still think you bring up a good point
Yeah.
that we should probably address. I mean, I think they are separate issues.
Uses in the pool of the lake. We do not have that as a use group, do we? I mean, how would you define a setback? How dense could you put them in there? I mean, how do you even do that? Because how do you sell chattel to something that floats around on the lake? I don't know. Those are really good questions. They blow
Well,
my mind, but I think they're good questions.
the original proposal, if I remember right, I wasn't on the board, but they were floating, but they were anchored. So they weren't floating all over the lake, but
It was anchored, yeah.
they were anchored. So if there's no objection, because we've talked this to death, if there's no objection, we will direct Mr. Goodwin to ask Dominion, and Mr. Mullen, you can help draft what we want them to answer. Ask them to come and give us a presentation on this exact subject.
Sure.
Because it's over and above what we're doing tonight, but it is a valid issue. And maybe look into this current ordinance to see if it's as strong as Mr. Barlow thinks it was when it was drafted 15 years ago.
What do we call the actual water? I mean, it's not R1, it's not R2. Maybe we need to define the waters of the lake and put things you can and can't develop in there by right, which would be docks and boathouses and seawalls and everything else you can.
And the only reason I'm hesitating to wade into that, no pun intended, is I'm sitting. Thank you. I'm thinking there are likely prohibitions from the Department of Environmental Quality from having utilities over water, wastewater treatment and containment.
Oh, I bet somebody could
systems.
figure
I mean,
something out.
And we might start before the meeting in front of the board with maybe a staff meeting with some Dominion folks so that we can kind of work up a list of questions and, in case things require research, we're not bringing somebody in here and they're saying, well, I got to check on the regulations on that.
We're making this too complicated.
You think?
I think. What I'm saying is, if we simply said this allows for boathouses.
It just define the lake as a,
And that's what we're doing,
call it L1.
then I think that makes it pretty simple.
L1
That's
and
all-
L2.
all
Hot side,
we're-
cold side.
In other words, Dominion purview is over boathouses and piers or something like that.
The only use you have in L1, big lake, is boathouses and docks, and the only use you have in L2 is boathouses and docks. All the uses are
All right,
prohibited.
does anybody have any objection to having Mr. Goodwin and
What a great
Mr.
idea.
Mullen reach out to Dominion? I think you've heard the concerns,
Yes, sir.
and get a presentation here. Just-
Yes, sir.
I am in a minute. All right, thank you, Mr. Kuhn. All right, I'll open the public hearing on this ordinance. Is there anyone here that would wish to address the board? Bob, if you stand up, I'm going to stare you down. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the
talked him
board.
right
I
down.
talked him right back down, didn't I?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
as it stands tonight, the document that was brought to us tonight, I want to strike the as-built out of it,
Out of all the places in it.
out of all the places in it, and approve for adoption.
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion?
Mr. McConaughey got that second. That was
Mr. McConnell, all right.
On it. He
Yes,
got
sir.
it.
Light issue from recommended to required.
Yes, and do you amend your motion?
I amend my motion.
Did you amend your second? All right, so, Mr. Barlow,
And y'all are confident that this, what we have now, does not give Dominion the authority to allow something.
We're not, but we promised to address it and fix it quickly.
Well,
No, I'm going to say, I'm going to agree with what Mr. Mullins said. That whatever protection there was in this ordinance yesterday on your concerns
Still exists.
are still in this ordinance tomorrow, because what we are striking does not any way impact that.
Okay, well, I can vote for it
Okay,
with that.
okay.
Call for a question, Mr.
All
Chair.
right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.